Welcome back to another edition of the More Than Phillies Sports Talk Show. It's awesome to be here with you. We have a very exciting show coming up today. It's the first time in a long time that we have an official playoff series for a Philly sports team. Last year, Sixers and Eagles, but for the Flyers, it's super exciting. So we have a great show, great guests coming on to discuss that in a little bit. But first of all, Gavin, how are you doing today?
Zach, I'm having a hard morning. All right, Phillies lose last night. All right, Phillies lose last night, and an embarrassment. But Zach, I'm gonna let you go first on that when it's time. Uh, your boy had to wake up this morning, early as you guys know, and had to get a little test done to make sure he can go to his doctor's on Friday. Zach, I was not happy at all. I'm still not happy. Not happy for a lot of reasons. We have a great guest on today. I'm gonna try to be positive, so when he comes on, it's all happy, fun vibes. But Zach, how are you doing, my guy?
I'm just excited as we've talked about a few times here. For those who noticed, the videos being smooth. There were just a few changes here on the show. I've adjusted the overlay designs here a little bit to continue to improve for the show. Our backgrounds right now giving a nod to the boys on Broad Street, the Philadelphia Flyers with the colors. So I'm excited. Look, we have a team in the playoffs that is not just a team in the playoffs, but a team that legitimately has a chance to go out and get a championship. For as Gavin describes it, a Zoom on Broad Street or something along those lines for at least now. But it's so exciting, this team. And again, we're going to keep breaking it down, keep giving them the attention they deserve. Yes, we're still going to talk about the Sixers. We also, the Phillies, we're going to kick it off with, which, yes, very frustrating. We'll have to get to that in a few minutes. But other than that, Gavin, I'm happy to be here.
That's great, man. I'm happy. Another great day with you. But I need to put this out here real quick. If you guys hear any banging or any noise from my end, uh, I'm getting a little work done to my other location in my for my show. So uh just gotta put that out there. But all in all, Zach, I know you were not happy about last night. Neither was I. We both can sit here and scream at the same time. That's not great for the show, so I'm gonna let you go first.
Yeah, let's get started with it here. The Phillies played the Baltimore Orioles, who are surprisingly having a pretty good year for them, at least. But for them, it's a 500 team. But the Phillies, they're supposed to be a better team. They're supposed to hit their stride. They scored 8 runs or 6 runs last night at some point. The bullpen blew it at some point to give them 8 runs. The Phillies ended up coming back and getting those 2 runs. And then a lot happened. Not just a misfire on the bullpen. The bullpen ERA is a 10.19 right now, which is the worst in the league. I just want to
The
get that.
highest as well.
That's just horrible. And with all that being said, pop fly in the infield. Reese Hodson calls it. Segura runs over. I don't know what happened on the play. We're still trying to figure that out. But bottom line is the ball was dropped. 2 runs scored. That would have been the final out. And the Phillies, if they had that ninth run in the final inning, then I'm pretty sure that they would have won that game. So the offense is starting to find their legs, Gavin. This is 2 days in a row where they have 21 runs, or maybe 22 if they had 13 the day before in the past 2 games. It's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But the pitching is not there, and more specifically with the relievers. It's so bad. And the fact that you can't count them is horrible. And it puts a manager like Joe Girardi in a tough situation. You can't expect your pitcher to throw 100 pitches and go all 9 innings, especially if they start to struggle at the end. You want to protect your pitchers first off. It's still early in the year. I know there's excuses at some point will run out. But then you got to put your nod to the bullpen when you can't even trust them. So I don't even know what's going on right now. It's such a tough situation. The defensive miscue at the end of the game just shows you how dysfunctional this team's been. But the offense has been spectacular. The offense the past 2 games is what we expected. JT, Didi, Bryce, everyone but Reese. It's so frustrating. Yes, as this comment says, Segura blew that game. All right, we know the pitching is terrible, but the offensive runs were there. And that's unfortunately going to be the formula for this team to win. Those little things that happen in the infield, those cannot happen.
Zach, first of all, I want to say this. How's everybody doing today? Zach Wheeler went 5 and 2 innings, 8 hits, 3 earned runs. Okay, that's not bad. I don't consider
Three
last
runs
night.
is fine. We scored 9.
I don't. But listen, I don't consider last night a bad outing, and here's why. There was some calls that wasn't his way. He was paying in the corner, and he wasn't getting it. We know how that goes, right? We know how that goes. So, Joe, you take him out. He let up 3 runs. That's cool. Okay, 3 runs is a deciding factor. Adam Morgan comes on, pitches for maybe one batter. Obviously, replaces Wheeler, gives up no runs. He actually gets a strikeout. Tommy Hunter comes in for an inning. He gives up 3 hits and 2 runs. He gets one strikeout, but that doesn't matter. You give up 2 runs. Jose Alvarez comes in, gives up no hits, no runs, or 1 hit, and no runs. Okay. This guy Hector Neris, I praised you yesterday. You gave up 3 hits, 3 runs. Okay. And you walked 2 people. Bases loaded, 2 strikeouts as well. You're the closer. Close.
He should have been out of that inning, though, Gavin. It's not his fault that Gene Segura and Rhys Hoskins can't communicate.
But close. I don't get close.
It was a pop fly 60 feet out. Usually, yes, I'm on your side with that, but you can't have this defensive miscues. Also, in extra innings, you have Roman Quinn diving for a ball that he knew he wasn't going to get. He was better off staying in front of that and preventing the bleeding, because then you had an inside the park home run instead of having one run come in. They would have been tied going at the 10th inning. They would have went to the 11th at that point.
And then Zach as well. You want to talk about bullpen miscues, and then obviously in the extra innings we give up a run. That's not the pitcher's fault. That's more on whoever else did it. I don't know. But going back to Hector Neris, he hit somebody again. He doesn't pitch for anything. We don't have nobody. And I feel bad for Joe because honestly, I think Joe has so much confidence in his bullpen that last night he probably had to be sitting there like, these guys suck. These guys honestly suck. And there's no I can't bring anyone out here anymore. Zach Will wasn't gonna make it to the 9th inning. Aaron Nola the other day probably would have made it. We won, but I think he would have made it. Doesn't take him out. What are you gonna do, Zach? What are you gonna do? I don't know what I'm going to do. And Scott Kingery can't see for anything. He can't hit the ball. Jay Bruce was like a monster last night.
Harper does his job. Harper's what, a 324 hitter right now?
I know, crazy.
Like 200 with 1 RBI and no home runs.
Shout out to Rhys Hoskins. Must have heard the show yesterday. He actually swung the bat. Zach, he swung the bat. He hit it. But Zach, my question for you is, what's going on? That's literally what's going on.
You have a really bad bullpen. If the offense finds their legs, if the offense continues to be consistent, then there is no problem with how that offense looks. The starting pitching is starting to click. Wheeler's 2-0. Last time I think it was a decision by him. He probably would have gotten the loss. The 3 earned runs again, like you said, Gavin, is not bad. So that's number one. Nola looked really good. Eflin even looked pretty good. Arrieta actually had a really good outing. If they can just have that, if every other outing for some of these guys, if at least 1 or 2 pitchers each week can really have a lights out game, then that, from that perspective, is going to be fine. But you don't have a mediocre bullpen who gives up 1 or 2 runs and makes it closer. You have a absolutely terrible bullpen. Worst ERA in the league. And at that point, who are you going to blame? We talk about Bryce Harper being $330 million. I mean, yeah, but he's doing his job. Rhys Hoskins is not doing his job, though. He's supposed to be a home run hitter. Now he's just not swinging the bat that much. He's up in the 200s again. Maybe this is the start of something new. Kingery's irrelevant. Gregorius is doing the same thing he had to do for the Yankees last year in a way of carrying us despite all the talent we have. You got to pay JT at some point, man. He's doing a great job.
Wait, say that again. And just so Matt Klentak can hear that.
Hey, the man. Like he deserves it. I'm bringing him and Didi back this offseason without a problem, without asking questions. But you need to figure out a way to develop either your farm system or to make some moves. You need to do something to get some relievers because this is a bad situation. And yeah, you said it before. It's unfortunate Seranthony Dominguez got his surgery so late because he was a good closer. Now we don't know what's going to happen. We're seeing some of the results from the end of the Ruben Amaro era when we got the 4 aces, when we did all that stuff. We got rid of our whole farm. We're still recovering, and this is the end result that we have.
Well, Zach, first of all, I want to say this thing. Pay the man. Don't say nothing else. Let that resonate for a second. Pay the man. All right? Pay the man. Now, in the offseason, pay JT Realmuto. You bring back Didi Gregorius, and you take a wrecking ball to that bullpen, and you knock every piece down until you build it back up again. And if it's not built better enough, someone should knock it out and build it again. It's a disgust. This is horrible. I know that last year the Nationals didn't have the best bullpen, but they had 3 strong aces that you didn't really need to use the bullpen. Obviously, the bullpen comes along later in the season, and Zach, you know the rest. They win the World Series. Someone said last night that the Astros bullpen is worse than the Phillies. Are they banging on trash cans too? Are they? Because I know they're banging on the trash cans. We must be inside the trash cans. We're trash. This bullpen is horrible. Zach, and Seranthony Dominguez really screwed this team over by taking a huge late surgery. This comment says his bullpen is a joke. That's just putting it in a nice way. That is a nice way to put it. Thank you, Mr. Ed. But that is a nice way to put it. Listen, if you think about it, Zach, and then you put all the mishaps together, who cares what the offense does? It doesn't matter. I'm gonna score 20 runs, and the bullpen's gonna give up 21. I can't compete with this bullpen. Backs on look, Zach. I know baseball is a team sport, even though it takes one swing of the bat to win a game, but it also takes one or two great arms to win a game as well. The Phillies bullpen have no arms, none of them, and I don't mean that literally, but I'm saying they don't have no great pitching whatsoever. Nick Pivetta, thank you. They got rid of him. Can we get rid of Vince Velasquez as well, please? Can we? Bullpen's a disgrace.
It's just all. I don't even know how you put yourself in this situation. You go out, John Middleton, who's been a big mouth. He went out and got Harper. He's got the confidence now. He pretty much stole JT from the Marlins. You gave him Jorge Alfaro a little bit more. That's not much for them. Marlins are known as the marketplace for good players because they never keep any of them. Yet they found a way to beat us in 2 of the 3 games. But as I digress, it's just ridiculous at this point. And is it the farm system? Is it development? Is it? You can't even blame the manager.
Matt Clinton.
Let me tell you
Milton.
the difference here between Gabe Kapler and the current situation. And we've made a lot of changes, not just the hitting coach, not just the manager, not just the only things that haven't changed in this offseason are the front office. Which when you go over a guy's head to fire Gabe Kapler and to bring in Joe Girardi, you think you'd fire the general manager too. It's a house divided up there, and we're seeing the results on the field. We talk about this a lot. Even the offense isn't enough to get rid of these woes. You're not. Like we said yesterday, Gavin. If we're going to be a good team and we split series with the Yankees and we win 2 of 5 against the Braves, that's fine. We can be a playoff team, but you have to win these games. We said yesterday we expect a sweep from the Phillies if they want to be a good team, and they've already failed that in Game 1. They play tonight in Game 2. We'll see how they do, but no reason to have a lot of confidence right now.
Real quick, Joe, you know it's all love, man. When I say this, can we get Scott Kingery out of the lineup until he hits the ball? Can we? Zach, I am not the most athletic person. I'm not the tallest person. But if you would have put me up there and you were like, I'm going to give you whatever he makes to swing the bat and at least try to make contact, I would do it. Zach, you're not going to get much from me, but you're going to get more than what he's giving out. I promise that. He's giving out straight. Can we put Phil Gosselin in? Did I say that right? I hope I said that right. Can we put Phil in, please? Can we put Goose?
What you could do is move Segura to second and bring up Bohm.
Can we do that as well?
Quick, I mean, look at your farm system. Why are we so afraid to call guys up? The Marlins have their AA team up right now because their whole team had COVID.
And they're still winning games, kind of, as well.
Tied for first place, definitely. I think it's crazy right now. And as I was saying before, Gabe Kapler would pull a pitcher after 4 or 5 innings if you give him like 1 run. Girardi's patient, but how do you think a guy like that feels when he's going out there, he's giving the guy the hook, and he knows he's bringing in someone who's not good? But you also got to preserve these guys' arms. It's so unfortunate in this team right now. It's just a disaster. Let me ask you this, Gavin. If you're going to go over my head, because let's say I want to Gabe Kapler, and you go over my head to fire him, why am I still here? What's the point of having a GM? What is Matt Klentak's job? He didn't go out and get JT Realmuto. He didn't go out and get Bryce Harper. John Middleton flew out to Las Vegas to get Harper. Right? Like, he did all these things to make sure that he felt welcome. He said he was willing to spend stupid money in this offseason. Best thing he got was Zach Wheeler. Wheeler's a good player, but there were some better options on the market. He's not putting his money where his mouth is. He's not overpaying, but that's the money it took to get Bryce Harper here. And we have him now for 12 more years.
I think he's somewhat worth it just a little bit right now. He's proven.
Oh, he's playing? No, Bryce Harper's doing his job. I have a Bryce Harper jersey. I bought it the day he was signed. I think he's a great player. We talked about his money out on the show, his comments with Blake Snell. We've covered all that. But at the end of the day, he's doing his job. Reese is not being paid a lot right now, so it's fine. He's not doing his job.
He doesn't deserve to.
Done. Kingery, I don't know what's happening with him. He's been given a starting role and he can't do anything. For the most part, I like Roman Quinn, but I think that last night he had a really, really bad job. But I just think that it's so interesting that you would go over the head of your GM, but you wouldn't fire him too. So it's like Klentak wanted Kapler, Middleton didn't. So now you have Middleton making the decision, and Klentak is still here with a manager that he doesn't even want. So what's his motivation to make the team better? Why does he have an immunity here? What's Klentak done? What has he done? We brought him out to Ruben Amaro? I think one guy in between too. And what has he done? What has he brought in for this team? What's happened with this pitching staff since the four aces? You get a Gem and Aaron Nola in your farm system. That's cool. You overpay for Jake Arrieta. I know he came off of a World Series and Cy Young, so it makes sense. But I mean, what is he doing here? The best thing he's done, if he was even involved with the JT signing, people are calling him the next Howie Roseman. Look what Howie's done for this team. Look what Howie's done for the Phillies. With the Eagles. There is no comparison between the two.
Wait a minute. Who said that? Because wait a minute, because that's an
insult. The JT acquisition.
Listen, because that's an insult. Whoever said that should apologize. First of all, Howie Roseman, after hearing that, Howie Roseman deserves 2 apologies. One for Matt Klentak for even being in the same breath as him, because that's blasphemous itself. And 2, whoever said that should also apologize as well. Because Howie Roseman, right? What happened? He brings in Carson Wentz, he brings in Doug Peterson, he brings in a few guys. We know Howie's not the best draft pick, his selection choice. Obviously doesn't get the obvious pick.
Past 3 years.
But I can't knock Howie Roseman because when it's time to spend money, he does. Even though he's a numbers guy, and I get on him about not spending money sometimes, but he does when it's needed. And what they do, they come out and they go to the playoffs. This team has nothing to show for it. I am Zach. I'm gonna make a resume after the show, right? I'm gonna make a resume. I'm gonna go down to Citizens Bank Park or wherever their office is. I'm gonna go right into military. I'm like, here, I'm applying for this job, and he's gonna say it's not open. I'm like, well, clearly it is. I'm 17 years old. Give me the job. I'm gonna do way better than he's doing. Because he does nothing. Klentak does absolutely nothing. Who wants to do that?
Why would you go over his head if you're not even going to fire him? Obviously, they disagree on a certain level, but I don't understand why he's still there. You're telling me you don't have anyone else out there that you could do, or John Middleton to do your job yourself. To have that split, to have that level, it's just an uncertainty. I just don't understand what the deal is, what the situation is. The Phillies have been a disaster this year. I mean, they've been they went 80 and 82 Capitals first year, 81 and 81 last year. It's a 1-game improvement, but look how much better the team was last year. You had opportunities. You could have potentially done that, and unfortunately, you dropped the ball. So, Gavin, as we wrap up this section before we get on to our guest, I mean, what are your key takeaways so far this season? Should Matt Klentak even have a job? And what else? What other differences would you be making for this team moving forward?
Well, first off, on Klentak, he better. I want him out of Philadelphia. Get him out of my city. Get him out. He's contaminating the fun spirit that the other teams around him have built. The Sixers, the Flyers, the Eagles, all of them. And the guests coming up will tell us how better the Flyers. He can make, even though it's 2 different sports, he could give us 50 reasons why the Flyers are more fun to watch than the Phillies. And when it comes to Klentak, he needs to get out of my city, man. He needs to go. From what I've seen so far, changes moving forward. Kingery has to find his stride. I don't think he's in baseball shape right now. I don't think he has the same passion as he did last year. Scott Kingery wasn't known for his home runs. He hit 15 of them last year, Zach. He hit 15 of them. He was a really good hitter last year. He was getting better. He has some speed. He has nothing going on right now.
The contact him to hit a lot of home runs, but he doesn't. The guy do your job.
He hasn't done anything. Another takeaway I get from the season was I think Joe Girardi is going to get an extension, and here's why. It's not Joe's fault. He's got the offense hitting. He's got Rhys Hoskins swinging a bat, which I would have never thought we would hear that. You know what I'm saying, Zach? It's just difficult. I don't know if I believe in the Phillies making the playoffs anymore. Yes, I came on. I was happy because they beat Atlanta, but I might take that back now. And I think we need to make some changes effective immediately. And when Rhys Hoskins' contract comes up, and Klentak's still here, we know he's going to get a big deal. But if Klentak's not here, I don't think Rhys Hoskins stays.
He's done nothing to deserve a good deal. And so I think one thing I do like about Joe Girardi, he doesn't move the lineup around too much. He's not putting Hoskins all over the place. He's letting everyone stay and get settled to get a better understanding of how it goes. And that's just evidence already they made the right decision changing managers.
Joe Girardi has not changed anything yet, and which is fantastic. Like I said, the lineup, the one thing that was horrible about Gabe Kapler is it will be 20 minutes before game time. Like, I'm hitting leadoff. All right. I don't know how to do that. Everybody thinks you just go in there and you just let no leadoffs. Either they got to get on base. They can't be the first out. Bryce Harper hit leadoff. once or for like a week.
I don't even know what he was thinking last year. I'm just so happy to have a more responsible coach here. So we have that taken care of, but you have a lot more to fix.
But we gotta take care of the front office because two of the main guys are on different sides of the spectrum. One's doing his job, the other one's just relaxing.
I agree. So with that being said, coming up next, talking about the hottest team in Philadelphia. We'll be talking about the Flyers
And it's not the
and
sixth
the
seed.
beginning of the playoffs tonight. All that and more after this. We are now offering a new product on our Teespring. Wear a mask in public. We are now supporting a custom designed mask with our logo on it. Purchase it today, and 10% goes to a foundation of our viewers' choice. It offers a full nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes two 2-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, and finally, $1 from every mask sale is donated to a nonprofit to feed children in need. Enjoy today's episode. And definitely, we've shown off the mask a few times on this show. The link is on the Facebook description as well as
Over
YouTube.
there. Can't get it.
Definitely, we'll have to bring him in soon. But with that being said, we're now going to be bringing in our special guest for today. Chris, it is an absolute honor to have you on the show. We really appreciate you coming on. I know it's really exciting right now, as much of a Flyers fan as you are. Tonight's the first, I guess you can consider the round robin, the beginning of the playoffs, but tonight the series starts against Montreal. It's going to be pretty exciting. I'm really excited to see what this team brings to the table.
Yeah, same here. And before I start off, again, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the round robin to me kind of looks like it's like preseason a little bit. Maybe they're trying to, I guess, say finish the regular season if you want to look at it like that with the revamp of the standings and things along those lines. But yeah, tonight, game one, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, none of the games today go like yesterday's Tampa Columbus game, and the Flyers actually get to play tonight with the 5 overtime game and things along those lines. But the game's at 8. It's definitely exciting. And yeah, I guess we'll see what happens.
So, Chris, I got a question for you, man. First of all, thank you for coming out here. We appreciate you joining us, and hopefully we can bring you back even more. But my first question for you is, what's the feeling like for tonight? The number 1 seed, all right, the best team, arguably the best team in the East or the Metropolitan, and arguably the best team in all of NHL. I know that might be a little bit of a push, but what is the feeling like?
It's good. That's one thing. It's definitely, this is probably the best team they've had since 2012, the last time they made it past the first round. And this has been the team that's been up there to compete. And I think this is the team for the first time since probably 2010 that can actually compete for a Stanley Cup. And honestly, that team didn't even look like they were, a team to compete for the Stanley Cup. I mean, they make the playoffs in the last game of the season. They're a 7th seed going into it, things along those lines. But, the feeling's good. I have a strong feeling about this series. I personally think the Flyers will win in either 5 or 6 games. I would not be surprised if the Canadiens took either game 1 or 2, just with the confidence they have going off of beating Pittsburgh and, I guess you could say in that first round there. But regardless, I mean, I think it's going to be a good series. It's definitely a good feeling. I mean, I started watching this team back in the last lockout. I don't know if you two gents know when that was, but 2012-13. And it was like a shortened schedule, like 48 games, something along those lines. And it was just it was just weird. I mean, it was the East played the East, the West played the West. So you only really saw the Western Conference against the Eastern Conference. Really was just the Cup final. So it was kind of weird. But the Flyers were terrible that year. And then, they make the playoffs the one year, they miss the next year. They make it, they miss, they make it, they miss. And it's like, there's really no consistency. And it's been really it's just been mediocre for the past 8 to 10 years. And this is, as I said, this is the first team that has a chance to really compete. So it's definitely a good feeling for sure.
No, I can agree. I can only imagine from when the Eagles were really hot and they were really pushing the 1 seed. It's an exciting feeling in Philly, and it's just as passionate as we are about our team. So I'll ask you this, though. I do remember in that Penguin series, I believe we lost in 5 when they beat us 6-0. We beat them 6-0, and then it was kind of the rest of the way, or maybe 6 games. But at that point, the front office, they decided at that point to kind of tear it down and rebuild it back up. Missed the playoffs last year. They really looked like they were hitting their stride at the end, unfortunately, falling short at the end. But this year, I mean, it was a great turnaround. So what do you think were some of the key attributes to that? Obviously, Carter Hart's a big difference, and this year, but that big paradigm shift, I guess I say, going from that team that was just mediocre in the playoffs, 1 year not playoffs, and now this year they're really starting to take that rebound and start going up again.
Yeah, definitely. And to me, obviously there's a lot of things. I mean, they added depth in the offseason. They get 2 veteran defensemen in Matt Niskanen and Justin Braun, guys that, Matt Niskanen just won a Stanley Cup with the Washington Capitals in 2018. He's been in the league a long time, very solid defenseman. And then they bring in Justin Braun, who is now a 13-year veteran, played with San Jose his whole career for 12 years, and now with the Flyers. And then they come in, they sign a guy like Kevin Hayes to I guess an overpaid deal is what it looked like, but he performs really well. And a lot of these guys kind of took a lot of credit, or shouldn't even say credit, a lot of hate before they even stepped on the ice. And a lot of people said that Hayes wouldn't score 20 goals and things along those lines. Hayes ended up putting up 23 goals with 4 being shorthanded. And he's amazing on the penalty kill, and he's done a lot of things for the team. I think the biggest thing is that he's so good in the locker room, and I think that's huge too, because in recent years the Flyers, they've looked to, and it's been said that they have just like a quiet locker room, and that with Dave Haxtell being the coach, he wasn't really that motivated and things along those lines. Well, they bring in a whole veteran coaching staff with Alain Vigneault, Mike Yeo, and Michel Therrien. All 3 guys have been head coaches before in the league, and they've been pretty successful with AV, going to the Cup final twice with Vancouver and the Rangers in 2011 and 2014. He didn't win, but getting there is still a pretty damn good achievement. But regardless, I mean, there was so much added too. I mean, they had guys just play out of their minds. I mean, guys like Konechny and Oscar Lindblom before his cancer diagnosis was on fire. And they just had guys step up. And I think the biggest thing is that they have depth. And that was the biggest thing, because for the longest time, the Flyers might have had maybe 1, maybe 2 lines, but their third and fourth line could never score goals. They could never bang. They were just physical guys, and that was it. And now they bring in guys like, you have guys like Farabee, and then you have Nicholas Holby-Coupel, and then you have a bunch of other guys too who can really come in and can score goals, and they can bang, and they can play, and they can make plays. Like, they're skilled enough to make plays, and then they end up bringing in a guy like Tyler Pitlick, and there was just so much more. And then they add Derek Grant and Nate Thompson at the trade deadline, and then obviously Carter Hart and Brian Elliott were phenomenal. I mean, last year they used 8 goaltenders the whole season. This year only have to use 2, so that's obviously a big plus there. But regardless, a lot of things made this team, really get going. And to me, I just think it's crazy how they go from one year where they're just off and nothing was really going well to a year where the next year they're just Cup contenders. It's just so weird.
Well, you talked about Oscar Lindblom, and I want to go back to that. So cancer diagnosis comes out.
Yeah.
The feed, my Instagram feed, is full of Oscar Strong. So I look at it as the team kind of rallied behind him and use his motivation to beat cancer to fuel their fire. So do you think he played a big role in their success or where they got to today? And how do you
100%.
Playoff game?
Yeah, dude, 100%. I mean, that right there, like, it doesn't matter what sport you play, what team, like, that will fuel anybody. And I think the biggest thing too is that he's in Toronto with them now. So that's another thing that he's there, his presence is there, and that's going to make them play for him. When that happened, that was in the middle of a road trip. They were playing some of the best teams in the league. I don't know if you remember this or if you follow the team like that, but they ended up playing 3 games. They had Colorado and then Minnesota, and then they ended up playing Winnipeg. So 2 of the games were back-to-backs, and they ended up finding out that Lindblom was diagnosed with cancer the day of a game, and they played the Colorado Avalanche, and they're like one of the best teams in the league. So they looked off for a few games, and it's obviously understandable. That's horrible news to begin with. And again, like, that really – it definitely hurt the team perspective for how good Lindblom was playing. He had 18 points in the 30 games at the time. So he was playing on fire. He actually led the team in goals with 11 at the time as well. But regardless, like, he was playing so good, and that obviously hurt. And not even just that, like, you'd never want to see that happen, right? So yeah, that and going off of that, it can also fuel them because he comes back, he starts practicing with them when they start doing this training camp again. And then as I said, like, he's there with them, so that adds a big edge to it. And it's huge. It's definitely a big thing that kind of boosts their confidence with the team, and it's definitely something to play for as well.
So what is the status for him when it comes to the playoffs? Are we going to see him?
We could, if they were to continue to play in September, he might get in the lineup. That's what they've been saying. AV is kind of a guy where by the time playoff come around, he doesn't really let out his lineup. You kind of figure it out game time. That's really when you figure it out. He's already done that today. He said he's already made up his mind about Robert Hagg being in the lineup tonight or Shane Gostisbehere. And he didn't really elaborate. So that's just something he's always done. He never really elaborates about his lineup in the playoffs, and it's good and it's bad at the same time. But regardless, I should really rephrase that. It's probably more good than bad. But regardless, it's definitely good to see. I mean, and the thing is too with Lindblom is that he might play, but the thing is like you don't really know where he's going to fit in and things like that. So they're definitely going to have to play out by ear. I could see him playing if it happens. And if he's able to play, because him being there, he still is in quarantine right now. He's actually has to quarantine from them before he ends up being able to be around them and stuff like that. But regardless, I definitely could see him playing at some point if they go the distance.
No, definitely, and it's been a great storyline all year, and obviously wishing Oscar the best. It's been relatively positive news as of late with him, which is great. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, who's ever had someone they know or them personally with cancer diagnosis, it's no laughing matter. It's very serious, and to have a team like we said, it looked off for a few games, but the way that they were able to rally around it, definitely something that if they win the cup this year, it's going to be really, even if they don't, it's etched in this team's history, and it's phenomenal. And like you said before, I think one of the big keys, and we had another guest on who mentioned it as well. It's a combination of youth and experience, and that's one of the keys. You have your centerpiece. You have Carter Hart. You have that player. You guys at Claude Drew have been here for a while, and then you start bringing guys in. You change the coaching staff up. Like you said, 3 former coaches. So I think it's definitely a fascinating experience for this team, and it's pretty easy to look at it on paper and expect them to make that jump. So the next question I have for you is, how far can you really see this team? We'll go more. I mean, I don't want to call it a realist situation, but let's definitely look at the optimistic, but also the pessimistic side as far as what this team really can do this year.
I mean, to me, it's tough. I mean, there's obviously, I mean, all the teams in this league are good, and I'll even say that about Montreal. I mean, they're obviously here for a reason. One thing is that when I watch this team, I get nervous before every game, and that's just how I am. I've been like that for years. Even if I went into it knowing they had no chance of winning, I still got nervous. So these last round robin games and even that exhibition game, I've looked at it like, all right, just survive the first 10 minutes, and that's all they have to do. Every game that they've played, they've had a horrible start. They struggle to just really do anything. They're sloppy, and then there's always a key moment in each game where it's either a power play or a hit, or someone makes a good play and they get a scoring chance, and they just get all the momentum in the world. I mean, we saw it the other night in that game against Tampa. They're kind of just sloppy, not really moving the puck well. They have a couple turnovers at the blue line. The first real shot that goes in, they get all the momentum in the world. Like the first shot that they had, like the real chance they had, it wasn't like an easy save or anything. They had guys in front, shot from the point, deflected by Albie Kubel. It's a 1-0 lead from there. And then they just had all the momentum in the world. They end the period with 20 shots on goal. So it's like, if this team can survive the first 10 minutes of each game, which they have been doing, I think they can go far. I mean, there's a lot of teams right now that are scaring me. Carolina, for instance, I don't want to play Carolina at all with the way that they're playing. They have a mix of veterans. They have a mix of good goaltending. And it's just so aggravating because I feel like everybody that leaves the Flyers ends up going somewhere and playing good. I mean, Peter Mrazek, he was with the Flyers in 17-18, struggled here, goes to Carolina, and he's phenomenal. It's so aggravating and it's so frustrating as a fan. But now that they have heart and things along those lines, it definitely is. It's good because they're not missing that piece anymore. But regardless, I definitely can see them going far. I don't know Cup final. I'll believe that when I see it. I mean, I think there's part of me that has a feeling, yes, this team can win a cup. I know they can, but then again, there's a feeling it's like I don't want to jinx anything. So it's like my best bet right now is probably Eastern Conference final at least.
Well, I mean, I hope they go all the way. The city could use something beautiful, especially in a time where there's a lot going on. The Phillies are a disappointment. The Sixers are a disappointment. The Eagles probably won't have a season. The Union, okay, we had a guy on talking about the Union, and the Union lost. He was upset. So we need something. But there's a comment that says, what do you think is the problem with the first line? Seems the second and third line and fourth lines are all productive. If they want to go deep, we're going to need the first line to be productive. So what do you think was wrong with the first line?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't really say there's anything wrong with it. I think it's just more their production isn't there. And I think if you look at a stat sheet, you're going to think, oh, they're not playing that good. I think all 4 lines have played good, to be honest with you. The other night, it was a different first line, obviously, with Voracek not being able to play. They had Joel Farabee on that first line with Jerome Couturier. And Jake will be in the lineup tonight, so he'll be back on that first line. So they'll have all their three top guns there tonight for the first line. But regardless, I don't think they've played bad at all. I thought Giroux and Couturier had a couple really grade A scoring chances in that first period versus Tampa. Farabee had the goal. Couturier had 2 assists. I thought Giroux played really good, even though he didn't get any points up. And the game against the Capitals wasn't really a, I guess I could say more offensive game. I mean, the shots were 21-17 to end the game in favor of the Flyers. And it was kind of just like odd. Like it wasn't like an offensive game, really. It was kind of back and forth. I guess you could say more neutral zone play. And things like that. But the Boston game, I thought they were phenomenal. I mean, obviously the power play has had its struggles, and that's the thing too. If they can get that power play going in the special teams, that's huge. I mean, watch out if they get that power play going. I'm serious. Like they might really start pouncing on these teams. But I'm not really worried about the first line, to be honest with you. I'm honestly predicting a big game from them tonight. I'm honestly predicting 3 points from Giroux. That's my prediction for this game. I don't have a prediction for the score, but I'm predicting Giroux with 3 points. But regardless, I'm not really worried about them. But I think once they get going, it's obviously going to help. But that's the thing when you have so much depth. It's like you have you have your first, second line, and that's really all they've had. And that second line with Lawton, Hayes, and Konechny has been phenomenal. I think they've combined for like 8 points in the 4 games or something like that. I think honestly maybe even more. But regardless, like it's weird because people talk about it like, oh well, their third and fourth line can't really get going, and I'm thinking to myself like, well, their third and fourth line both play good games, and it's like I don't know, it maybe just seems like people didn't watch the game, or I guess they don't watch it as close as I do, but to me, it's weird. I mean, I don't really understand what the hate that first line gets. I think they're a great line. I think they're those guys are the leaders on this team for a reason. I think they're going to step up in the big moments. And it may not have happened yet, but then again, another thing you got to put into perspective too is these guys have played, 4 or 5 games in the span of, 4 or 5 months. So it's definitely going to take some time. And that's where I'm kind of leaning in with the power play too. It's like they went over 7 versus Washington. They had so many chances. And if they score a couple power play goals, that game's over, right when they score. So it's like it really just takes all the wind out of their sails. But I think the power play is big for that line too, because obviously your first unit's out there for a long time in the power play, around a minute and a half. They get the power play going, those guys will definitely, you're going to see a lot more points on the stat sheet. But I think that game versus Tampa really started to help out that first line. As I said, Farabee with the goal obviously won't be on the first line again. But Couturier with 2 assists. I thought Giroux had a couple good chances. I thought they all played good defensively as well. But I think it might take a little bit. But I'm hoping tonight is going to be the spark for that line.
No, definitely. And so as far as just kind of tying it back to kind of the basics here in the playoffs, you look at teams like the NBA, you're starting 5, you're going to 5, 6, 7 minutes more in the playoffs than the regular season, usually when you get deeper in. So how does that kind of correlate with hockey? Are you going to see some of the first and second line playing more minutes, or at least maybe later in the rounds, maybe early on, to try to go what they've been doing in the regular season? Or how will that usually work with a lot of teams that are expected to go deep in the playoffs?
Well, I mean, usually it's kind of different because all lines get around their same ice time. Usually, the fourth line at most probably gets 8 to 10 minutes a night, and that's just a given. And those guys are the guys that will play that role for you, and the Flyers have that. One thing is that towards the end of the game, if they're winning or if they're losing, obviously your top guys are going to be out there. Your better defensive guys. Obviously your first unit, which is good defensively and just as good offensively. It's more of later in the games when you're going to have more of your top guys out there. I mean, especially like if there's an empty net or something, and if it's against you, you're going to have you're obviously going to have guys like Giroux, Couturier, Provorov, Niskanen, and I don't know, maybe like Kevin Hayes or maybe even Voracek if they want to keep the lines there. But if they have the net pulled to try to get a goal, it's going to be probably your power play unit, maybe with Konechny or Kevin Hayes, with them. And it's going to be your top guys in those final minutes if needed, and those final minutes of play. I guess So basically, just regardless of the score. But as for the a normal game, it's usually just the same ice time. Now, obviously, if a guy isn't playing that well, he might get benched a little bit. You might not see him for a while. And then injuries are 100% a factor too. I mean, like the other night, the Flyers, at one point to start the second period, they lost Travis Sanheim, but then they had to go with playing, it was a 12 forward, 5 defenseman unit, and then I believe they had guys like Provorov Niskanen get a little bit more ice time. So it's like if something happens there, those guys will get more of the ice time and definitely will be out there more. If there's an absence of someone on the bench, but regardless, it's usually just the same ice time for just about every game.
Gotcha. That's definitely it's good information. It's definitely different sports between that and basketball, but
Yeah.
as you get to the closer games, it's going to be interesting. So one more question before I hand it off to Gavin for another one. There's no fans, and so the sounds are definitely going to be different. The atmosphere for hockey and any sport for that matter, the fans really make a big factor. Now this team, it's a good blend of young guys, a good blend of veterans. For the veterans, they're probably less bothered. Do you think some of the young guys will feel the pressure of a playoff atmosphere, or do you think it kind of stays the same as it's been, considering that there are no fans?
Obviously, it's tough to say with that because obviously the fans are huge in the playoffs. I mean, it's sold out all the time and things like that, and it adds so much momentum and your nerves tense up more when there's more people there. That's just how it is. I think it'll definitely, I guess you could say, ruin that too, because then again there isn't as much pressure. But another thing that these guys have to think of is that there's so many people watching this on TV. That's what they have to think of. Like you have the ratings, I'm sure, have sparked up for all this, and that includes the NBA, the MLB, and the NHL, and then every other sport, and then as you said earlier with the union. But regardless, I mean, that's kind of what you have to think of now. I mean, obviously it's different, and you're going to have to adapt to things. So that's something that I think the players are going to have to look at is that, you know what, there's people at home watching us on TV. Let's play for them. And I think the one thing the NHL has done great is, I don't know if you guys have watched the games, but they have those electronic boards along the, kind of in the stands.
Yeah.
Those are insane. Like they did that for a reason, and it's to make it, and another thing is too, is they have the fans on the screen, for certain things. And then they have the chants, the goal horn, everything is to the team there. So it was 24 teams. Now it's 16. So all 24 teams that were there, and now the 16, they have all their goal horns and things like that. So they're trying to make this as normal as possible. I don't know how normal, obviously, it is because there's really no home ice advantage and things like that. But regardless, that's the thing that the players are going to have to look at, is that there's people watching it on TV, and that's probably going to be their biggest motivation.
Well, I mean, the NBA has the same thing with the fans. I miss the fan interactions, fan and the players. When there's a big shot from Damian Lillard, last night he scored 61 points, but when there's a big shot from Damian Lillard, the crowd goes crazy. And same thing when there's a goal scored in hockey, the crowd goes crazy. It's going to be one of those things where it's going to take time to get used to, because in the playoffs you look for that.
Yeah,
you look for that. Those things for like that for me make the game more interesting and more like feels normal. But I gotta give props off to the teams that did the bubbles, because bubbles not that easy.
No.
You're asking players to go away from your family / kids to go anywhere else and play there for a couple months. So Chris, my next question for you is the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
They have 2 different bubbles in Canada. You have the one bubble in, I think it's Toronto, and I'm not too sure where the other one is. Edmonton. So the positive, there's no positive cases. How do you think the bubble has been for the NHL? You think it's been a success, or you think
100%.
100%?
One thing is too is that, well, and it's funny because you just said it, the positive cases, they haven't had any. They came out the other day for starting in the first round. They didn't have any, and then I think they had 2, but they weren't players. It was strainers, and that was the first time they did it. Next time they had 0, and then this following one was 0 again. So they've been doing a really good job at that, and what they make it so strict, and they've done it so well that after each game, and it's funny because this goes back to the 5 overtime game yesterday, because they were supposed to play that Boston Carolina game.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but they have people in there that they basically disinfect everything, like the benches, the locker room. There's people in there with mops and they're wiping things down. They have this big, it kind of looks like this big thing of bug spray on someone's back, and it sprays the whole locker room,
Ghostbusters, where they spray the disinfectant around. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it takes 30 to 40 minutes for each locker room and the bench and everything. So that was the biggest thing going into that game, was are they going to have enough time to do this with that 5 overtime game on yesterday? So that right there, that's huge as well. They've had it really strict to where if you leave the bubble and you get caught, your team can actually lose draft picks. That's how strict they've made this so that they obviously don't lose anything. Because another thing is too is that hockey's going to lose a lot of money with this if they weren't able to do this. Obviously, obviously with them not having fans and things like that, the TV revenue was the biggest thing. So they want to make sure this is the best thing possible, and that's why they've done so much with trying to make it at least somewhat, I guess you could say, funny in a way where like they've made like jokes like in the one round robin game they had like 2 nights attendance 0, like because obviously no one's there, but they just do that just for fun, just to give the people at home like a chuckle. But regardless, like I think the NHL's done a great job, and the bubble is definitely good for the players. There's been a lot of guys that I know the NBA's done it with some guys. I know I'm trying to think who it is on the Sixers. I think it's Thibault. He's been recording it for YouTube.
Yeah.
They had a couple NHL players. It was one of Toronto's backup goalies. Toronto's actually out now, but before he was actually like recording and stuff, and he was showing them like around and everything. And in the footage that he had, there was a lot of stuff where like he would like when you go to everything, you have to get tested, and everything's like blocked off for the players. Like they've really done a great job in like trying to make it as safe as possible for the players. Because another thing is too is that you're there for so long, and then as you said with them not being with family and stuff. I know Lars Eller of the Washington Capitals. His wife just had a baby. So what happened was he was at training camp. He left, and then he was going to come back. So he quarantined for 2 weeks. He's still in that quarantine process, and he's going to come back. So that's another thing you can do is that you can leave, but then you have to quarantine 2 weeks, and then you're able to come back into the bubble. If obviously, I think you have to test negative 3 times. It might be more, but I believe it's 3 times. I'll have to double check that. But again, they've done a really good job to make this as safe as possible for everybody because, again, they can't really mess this up.
No doubt, definitely.
Yeah,
and no, so as far from me, Gavin, do you have anything else you wanted to touch on here before my last point?
Oh yeah, real quick. Next year. I've been talking about this with a lot of people about next year. Once the bubble ends, both respectively the NBA and the NHL, they're going to have to both sit down, not together, but they're going to have to sit down and say, what are we going to do? Because you can't. I mean, it's easy. You could say put some people in a bubble for 4 months. So, Chris, my question for you is: will there be a bubble next year for the NHL? I know it's a long time, so it's a long season to throw people into a spot and say this is your home for these next 7, however months the season is.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there was. If obviously if this gets worse, I mean, I know there's been other leagues that have taught like the AHL for instance, they've said that like they have starting dates. It seems like all the dates are December 4th is when they're looking to come back. So by the tentative dates the NHL has given, they've said that they're supposed to end this around October 4th to the 10th, and then they're supposed to have the draft like 2 or 3 days after the Cup final, and then free agency November 1st. So they're really cramming everything in because normally free agency is July 1st. So that would have been long gone already at this point here on August 12th. But regardless, they're trying to get it done as quick as possible, and then they're supposed to have the training camp again for next season right after the free agency. So, and that's like mid to late November, and then you got the start of the season on the 4th. So it's going to be once this is over, you're going to be bam right back into it again. And to be honest with you, I could honestly see them doing bubbles for another year. If this is successful this year, I'd have to think they do it again. And it's been going pretty good so far. I'd have to think they do it again. I don't know where. I wouldn't be surprised if they did Toronto and Edmonton again. Obviously, they'll definitely have to look at that again with obviously cases and things like that. But hopefully, towards that time, this hopefully this will be getting better. Maybe they won't have to. I know they've been talking about next season, where it's kind of like the team is kind of it's not really the city. It's actually the team that says if you can have fans. I know they've said that for the Eagles, and that's the same with the Flyers. It's really for what the team and what Wells Fargo Center would say if they can have fans in the arena and things like that. Now, obviously, I don't know if I would go, but regardless, I could honestly see them having a season. I wouldn't be surprised if they did the bubble again, but hopefully they would be able to do it with fans, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could do it with fans either. My thing is I really don't care if there's fans in attendance. I'm just happy that it's on and it's live. So regardless, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there's another bubble again.
We'll just have to wait and see. Me being a fan of every game, I want to go there. I wouldn't go if it's max capacity, maybe limited capacity.
Yeah.
I would go. And I
Mhm.
don't know if you watch the KBO guys. They're doing scattered fans here and there, so it's not like a section where they pack everybody in. Few here, few there. It looks really scattered. There's people there. That would be my comfortability for right now. But it's a big what if. That's what the world's come to right now. It's a big what if.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know if I would go if it was 100. I probably wouldn't at all, to be honest. And I think another thing is too is that with everything with this and things like that, I think a lot of families are probably going to be limiting stuff with and I think sporting events is probably going to be the biggest thing that they're not going to want to be paying for and things like that. If ticket prices are going to be the same and you have to have all these like restrictions and stuff, obviously with the mask and things like that. I mean, um, I really don't know because another thing is too is like I can't see them be selling food and stuff
No.
if they're going to be having fans. Like that's just ridiculous. There's no way they're going to be doing that. But I don't know. It's to be honest, and as you said, it's a huge what if. So I guess we'll see what happens.
No doubt, man. No doubt.
No, I couldn't agree more. As you said, it's just about a comfortability standpoint. We'll see what happens. It's been successful so far. The bubble. We saw the MLB have outbreaks when they didn't have a bubble. We'll have to keep moving forward with it. But with that being said, thanks so much for being on. Before we do wrap up with you, though, I do want to give you an opportunity here to talk about your page quickly on the Flyers Media 93. I saw that on your way to 500 subscribers. Congrats to you. We hope to be there sooner than later as well. Just about that, your podcast. Maybe just touch on that before we wrap it up today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. It's Flyers Fan Mania 93. I do game reviews after each game. And then I will literally break down anything. Throughout the quarantine, I just do like random videos and just like discussions and things like that. But now I'm starting to get back into the games. So again, and then we also have the podcast as well. It's Fired Up Podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple, and then wherever you listen to a podcast, you can listen on there. And we do, previews of games. We've had some guests on. We've had Brian Propp on, Bill Meltzer. We've had a lot of guys on, and it's been fun. And then we also do like game reviews and stuff like that. So we'll definitely have a episode tonight, and then I'll also have a video tonight as well. So again, guys, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. You guys do a great job here, and I had a good time listening to the baseball talk before I hopped on here. So it was definitely fun, and again, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming out, and no doubt, everybody go check them out. Great content over there. I'm definitely gonna be tuning in tonight. As soon as the game's over, the video's gonna be up. I'm gonna be watching. So I'm excited, man. And I hope to have you back really soon.
No,
And,
yeah, I'll definitely come on again. I'll say that right now, 100%. I would come on
you
again.
gotta join us. You gotta join us for the baseball talk. It's heated, but it's fun.
No doubt. Thank you so much for being on, Chris, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Peace.
You too.
All right, after this, we're going to be breaking down the rest in the NBA world before we wrap up today's show. All that after this. Would you like to know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see 2 links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this. And definitely we'll be continuing to break down the organization we're supporting this month, as well as gathering our tallies from last month. If you're on Facebook, the links are also there. Thanks so much for the support so far. With that being said, Gavin, let's get to it. The Blazers hold the 8 seed. If the season ended today, they would be playing the Memphis Grizzlies in the play-in tournament. The Phoenix Suns and San Antonio Spurs are right there behind the Grizzlies. If they continue to lose, they could lose out on the possibility of this. So I'll ask you this, Gavin. Will the Damian Lillard expedition work, and will the Blazers make the playoffs?
First of all, Zach, I just want to say I'm finally going to give up on the Memphis Grizzlies for this year. They caught up to them. The Blazers caught up to them. The Phoenix Suns are tied for the 9th spot right now. So, sorry, Ja Morant, but I'm at to hop off the train and get back to the real reality. I think the Blazers hold it, but they're not playing the Grizzlies in the play-in tournament. They're going to play the Suns, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Suns maybe find a way to pull out. Devin Booker has 35 straight. Every game he scored 30 plus. Devin Booker's on a complete tear right now, Zach. He's on a complete tear. And Zach, I will say this as well. If you're gonna 61 points for Damian Lillard, that's crazy. That's crazy. Damian Lillard, he had some comments to say. I can't repeat those, but he said put some respect on his name. Dame, you got it. I still call this a Dame Lillard expedition. I owe you an apology. You pulled it off. But my apology doesn't come into effect until it's the playoffs and you play the Lakers in the first seed. By the way, Zach, they could pull an upset versus the Lakers if they make it. Zach, they could do it. They beat the Lakers the day after Kobe Bryant passed away. Sad to say, but it happened. Uh, and they sent teams home before. They sent the Rockets home. They sent Oklahoma City home. So Zach, maybe this playing tournament or the Damian expedition works.
No doubt, I think it's definitely an interesting scenario. But you brought up that the Grizzlies and the Suns potentially right now, if the Suns win their final game, they'll be 8-0 in the bubble. And if the Grizzlies lose this next game, they're out. So I'm going to pull up now the schedules for both teams. And we're going to look at the reality of the situation here. As you mentioned, though, I'll ask you this quickly, though. Between the Suns, the Grizzlies, and the Blazers, which team has the best chance of beating the Lakers?
The Blazers do, and it's the experience of Damian Lillard and the veteran presence of Carmelo Anthony. You got Yusuf Nurkic that's balling right now. He's healthy for once. You got Hassan Whiteside, arguably a great rebounder in the league right now. You got Damian Lillard who's on a complete tear. You got CJ McCollum who's not on a tear but he's still there. Gary Trent. DeJuan was talking about Gary Trent the other day. Gary Trent, you can't ignore him. He's shooting the ball effectively really well. They got a great coach. Even though they lost Rodney Hood early in the season, look, Zach, this team you can't joke around with this team. You can't ignore this team either.
No, I agree. And so let me just tell you this. The Grizzlies are going to be playing the Bucks in their final game. The Suns are playing the Mavericks. And the Spurs are playing the Jazz. I think the Spurs lose to the Jazz, so they're out. The Grizzlies against the Bucks, Giannis probably won't play the whole game if he does play any of it. And the Suns and the Mavericks. Can the Suns beat the Mavericks to take on that 9 seed?
Yes, because I don't think Luka Doncic is going to be playing that game. I think they rest Luka and I think they rest Chris Dabbs as well. So I see the Suns winning. Grizzlies versus Bucks. Excuse me.
Have to win for them for the Suns to get 9.
So I believe the Suns will get the 9 seed. They just have an easier way to go, and plus they beaten teams, difficult teams as well. The Mavs aren't that difficult. Remember, they beat the Clippers with a game winner. They beat the injury-prone Sixers team last night. So Zach, they could do it. They could do it.
I mean, I agree. I think this is potentially going to be exciting. Like you said, I would love to see the Suns and the Blazers play each other. That would be a competitive game. But let me ask you this, Gavin: if Nurkic was healthy all year, if the Blazers were playing like this, what seed do you think they'd be?
They'll be in the 4th seed. They'll be top 5. Nurkic didn't play last year. They were top 3. And there's no Golden State this year, so they easily would have made top 4, top 3, top 5. One of those tops. Top 5 to be big specific. Look, injuries happen. Damian Lillard wasn't playing the best of basketball in the beginning of the year. Zach, we know it. CJ McCollum was kind of carrying a little bit. Carmelo Anthony got there and they started winning some games. But Nurkic is here. Hassan Whiteside's here. They can run. Zach, did you know the lineup they can run? They can run Hassan, then they can run Nurkic, then they can run Melo, then they can run CJ, then they can run Dame and Gary Trent as a 6th man coming off the bench. And you talked about who could match up with Anthony Davis. I know DeAndre Ayton. He could probably do it, but why not you put Hassan Whiteside on Anthony Davis? You saw Lucas Nurkic who can rebound the basketball. If you want to switch it, you can switch, and easily they can guard JaVale McGee. Who's going to guard LeBron James? I think Melo can have a nice little shot at it. But Zach, all in all, this team matches up well. I think they might be just a tad better than the Lakers on paper right now, concerning the Lakers don't have Avery Bradley or Rajon Rondo. And remember, outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the next best players, Kyle Kuzma. He's not that great.
No, he's not. But if he plays like he did the other night, maybe they could. With that being said, Gavin, we are going to have to wrap up today's show, but you make great points, and I'm excited to see it moving forward. With that being said, tonight, just stay tuned for the Twitter, what time we're going to go live on Facebook and YouTube if you have your notifications on. We'll be there. We're doing a little bit of a watch along and post game show, perhaps getting Chris back on, depending on the situation.
Yeah,
But
Matt with us tonight as well.
Tonight as well. So it's very exciting. Again, stay tuned for the Twitter for updates, as well as our Instagrams and Snapchats. We'll make sure to push out when we're going live. It's going to be pretty exciting. The first non just show live stream on this network. So we continue to grow. Very exciting. And from there, thanks everyone and have a great day.
Subscribe to Chris, everybody, and keep following us.
I agree. Thanks everyone. Have a great day. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we go live and when we post excerpts of our videos. Again, thanks for watching. Have a great